Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to be talking about Love's Labour's Lost. Let's begin with a summary. In the beginning, we are introduced to King Ferdinand of Navarre and his friends, Biron, Longueville, and Domaine. They've all taken a vow to not look at a woman for 3 years because they want to study. And I kid you not, in not a single scene of this play do they study. They learn absolutely nothing. Moving on. The king and his men take a vow to not look at a woman for 3 years because they want to focus on studying and gaining wisdom. Brown, one of the king's boys, points out how this is a stupid vow because they have to host the Princess of France in literally 2 days. But in spite of recognizing how dumb the vow is, they make up their mind to not break it. And so the king and his men meet the princess and her squad. Obviously this is while the princesses have their faces covered as to not reveal themselves to the king and his men. The king and his boys start feeling romantic, so they turn to poetry to get their feelings out. In a scene in the woods, Biron admits that he has feelings for Rosaline. He then hears someone approaching, so he hides. The king enters and admits that he has feelings for the princess. Then he hears somebody else approaching, so he hides. Then Longueville enters and admits that he has feelings for Maria. Then he hears someone approaching, and so he hides. And then Domaine enters and proclaims the love he has for Catherine. And then, while all of these guys are admitting their feelings, all the men who are hidden make fun of the guy who is proclaiming their feelings at the current moment. Until one by one, each man reveals themselves, and they all realize that they want to break their vow. They realize, hey, we're all in love here, and if we all did it, then, is there really that much shame in it? The women they're into, though, the princess and her squad, discover that the men want to break their vows, and they're not thrilled about this. They don't want to marry vow breakers. If these men can't hold a vow for not looking at a woman for 3 years, then what's to say they're not going to break their future marriage vows? The women receive poems and gifts from the guys, and they aren't too pleased about it. Thanks to one of the princess's servants, the women discover a plot by the men to look at the women that they love. They plan to come disguised as Russians and offer to dance with the ladies. The ladies decide to play a trick of their own. Rosaline pretends to be the princess and vice versa. When the men arrive as Russians, the women treat them coldly and refuse to dance with them. The king, still in disguise, declares his love for Rosaline, thinking that she's the princess, that he will either get married to her or die her lover. The women remain steadfast and refuse the advances of the men. The men eventually give up and go away. The women then make fun of the men some more. Soon the men return as their usual selves, and the women reveal they knew all along. They proclaim how they were the ones to get the last laugh. Then some minor characters in the show put on a bizarre show about some of the greatest lovers in history and mythology. Hercules, Judas from the Old Testament, etc., etc. While the main characters mercilessly mock them. The play is interrupted when the princess receives news that her father, the King of France, has died. Upon hearing this, Ferdinand, King of Navarre, realizes his opportunity and seizes it by saying, "Sorry your dad died. I'll be your new daddy." To which the princess responds,
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
She explains she wants time to grieve her father. She's also like, don't make this decision to marry me in the heat of this moment. I'm gonna take a year and you should too. Fast, study, pray, stay away from women. If you want to be my lover, you gotta be my friend. And you can be my friend by giving me some space when my dad just died. And so, she says her piece, and then all the other women in the princess's party tell the men to wait a year, to just cool your jets. And there's this phenomenal moment at the very end of the show, after all the women have told the men to wait, where they sort of break the fourth wall. Our wooing does not end like an old play. Jack hath not Jill. These ladies' courtesy might have made our sport a comedy. And then, come, sir, it wants a 12-month and a day, and then 'twill end. That's too long for a play! So, like, it's just, fun to have the fourth wall get broken like that. And that's how the show ends. They don't get married. No marriage. My biggest takeaway from Love's Labour's Lost was its ending. Most of Shakespeare's comedies end with a marriage, or a marriage is implied shortly thereafter. And so, the fact that there was no marriage, and I felt like there was like sort of this build-up that, oh, there's gonna be like this marriage, like the guys are gonna break their vows or whatever, but they were like, no, I found it really funny. This play has a lot of wordplay, and here are some examples that I thought were really funny. What time of day? The hour that fools should ask. How well he's read to reason against reading. Fetch hither the swain, he must carry me a letter. A message well sympathized, a horse to be an ambassador for an ass. This letter is too long by half a mile. Other times, though, the wordplay will be based on Old English or Latin, and you'll have absolutely no idea what the characters are trying to say. Not to be a hater, but Love's Labour's Lost had way too much Latin for my taste, all right? Like, there were these two characters, Sir Nathaniel and Hoffin Furness, or whatever his name is. Sir Nathaniel and, I'll just throw his name up, and that guy. And the whole idea is they're like super smart, and so they're using Latin, and there's this sort of dumber character whose name is Dole, and he doesn't understand like a word they're saying. So I found him the most relatable character in the play. But like they just go on and on, like making puns and like jokes in Latin and stuff, and it's like, guys, I'm getting none of this. And then there was another time in the play where like this whole scene, there's like this big joke that is like building, and it's like in Old English, and I have like no idea what they're talking about. So I had to go on like Lit's chart, which has like Shakespeare translation for like all the plays and stuff. And I was like just looking from like the book I have to like the translation. I'm like, I kind of get it, but like not really. Yeah, this was interesting because I found this play really funny, but there were certain parts of it that were some of the most difficult Shakespeare I've read. Yeah, so reading this was an interesting experience for sure. Anyways, apart from those Old English and Latin scenes, I found the rest of the play to be absolutely delightful. Lots of really funny lines and wordplay, lots of sappy love monologues, lots of zany characters, which brings me to my favorite character, Don Adriano de Armando, whose character description is a fantastical Spaniard, which is just amazing for so many reasons. He's this side character he's in the king's court, and so he swore the oath to not look at a woman for 3 years. But he doesn't really interact with the king or the court until Act 5, and he's sort of off doing his own thing. And he has this page, this servant, whose name is Moth, and Armando is kind of dim. Like, he's kind of dim, and Moth takes advantage of that, like, and sort of cuts into him and like makes jokes at his expense. And it's really funny, the sort of relationship that Moth and Armando have. And it's just, those scenes I thought were very, very nice, very delightful. There was this one scene, Act 4, Scene 1, where a bunch of the characters were making innuendos, and I had no idea because it's like Shakespearean or whatever. So like, I was like, what are these guys talking about? And then I looked at like the Shakespeare translation, and it was like, one by one for each innuendo was like, and then so-and-so is saying like, da 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 da. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot of information. So that was probably like the most wild moment I had reading this play. Yeah. No, all in all, I'd say Love's Labor's Lost. It's a very good show. I think on my like tier list of comedies, it's like on par with Two Gentlemen of Verona. I think for me it's like Two Gentlemen of Verona, Love's Labor's Lost is like slightly above, but like they're on the same level, you know. And then Comedy Bears is like at the top. No, love Comedy Bears. I don't know, with this, I feel like it's almost Comedy Bears level, but then like the Latin and Old English like brings it down to Two Gentlemen of Verona. But yeah, really enjoyed this play. Yeah, if anybody's read it, let me know what you guys think, because I'd love to hear from you guys. Anyhow, take care, stay safe.